Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to round 2 of the 3cubed preliminary round of this, our 10th Process Innovation Challenge. How you doing there, Dave?
Fantastic. We say it again and again, but it's great to be here. Love doing this event, and great to have you here as usual, Alex.
Thanks.
And we've got our innovators and our dragons.
And we had a great round 1 yesterday, 5 innovators, and today we've got our second batch competing for a chance to go on to our final round that'll take place on, yesterday I made a mistake, it's actually on Wednesday, June 9th that our final round will take place. You will need to be registered for LocWorld Wide 44 in order to see that final round. I'd also like to make a real quick pitch. Later today at 7 p.m. CEST, there's a Taste of LocWorld event with 2 great speakers, and I've gone ahead and put the link to that information in the chat window here in Zoom. So if you're interested in joining for that, we encourage you to click on that link, and it's completely free to attend that event. So please join us for the Taste of LocWorld at 7 p.m. CEST. Without further ado, back to you, Dave. Let's get this show on the road.
Well, almost. Let's not jump the gun just yet. We've had some great innovations come in. As you said, we had 5 people yesterday. We have 5 people today. But just in case someone's new to this, what are the rules? Well, it's quite simple. Innovators have 3 minutes on stage. They're going to show us around 3 slides, and there's 3 dragons. So let's welcome our dragons. And this time around, we have Yuka Nakasone, Jim Compton, and Jochen Hummel. So welcome, dragons. Great to have you on board.
Good to be here. Thank you.
I'm Dave Rowan, and Alex, you're you.
Last I checked, yes.
So, once more onto the breach we go. One of the nice things about the PIC is we see people at different stages in their innovation journey. Where are you on yours? Hopefully you're not harping too much about the fax machines of yesteryear, or indeed falling into the chasm. There be sharks there. In our case, there's dragons. So our dragons are going to ask those questions. Some might be a little tough, hopefully not too tough. We'll see what mood they're in today. But who's going to be talking to the dragons? Well, here are our innovators today. We're starting off with Konstantin Savenkov, who's going to talk to us about MT. Very exciting. We have Mayu coming next on impact localization. So you should leave here knowing what that is at the end. We may ask questions, so watch out. Anouk is then going to talk to us about Honey, I Shrunk the Pieces. Right? Intrigued? Wait for her session. And then Konstantin Savenkov is going to talk about tagging in the MT world. And finally, Rickert is going to help us understand a little bit more about QA and local experience and workflow. But, cat out of the bag, I will not do. You'll find out if you stick around. All right, let's go. So first up, we have Konstantin Savenkov, and Konstantin, we'll have you join the stage, share screen, and get you started.
Just a note to our innovators, again, everyone has 3 minutes for a pitch. At about 2.5 minutes, you'll see the little 30 seconds left sign. I will do my best, if I have to give you a 10-second warning lately. So good luck to everyone.
Well, thank you very much, Dave and Alex. Glad to be here. It's my first PIC, and it's a little bit weird for me to be on this side. I'll be very quick because I have only 3 minutes. And so let me go through this. My company, which I founded only like 8 months ago, trains machine translation engines. And early in the journey, we realized that for each language, when we train multiple brands with the same data set, we get different gains, right? So one of them might get 50%, another one get 20%, another one 5%, and you don't know how much you get before you train. So the conclusion was, you got to train them all, right? And this might get into a very long and tedious process. For the teams that just start in trading, it takes them sometimes like 6 months to roll out their first engines, which is too long in terms of business. We try to automate this, and we try to make this into a workflow which is more manageable. And so to have a project which has 10 languages, so maybe 50 or 60 trained candidate engines which need to be evaluated. We try to bring it down from months to weeks. And we're a small company, a startup, so we don't have millions in terms of money. We don't have a big staff of engineers on the team. So we decided to go with a very Lego-like approach. We took automation, which exists on the market, Microsoft RPA, a little bit of Visual Basic script. So what you see now here in the video is our engineer launching the script, and it will produce a report on 7 engines within less than a minute. So once we have this pieces in place, instead of reinventing the bicycle, just took modern automation stuff, low coding platforms, and built together a solution which can generate, at the moment it's Excel, future it might be an online dashboard for the customer where you can see the performance of the engines. So simple tricks, efficient, it makes us much more, much faster. It takes now days or I don't know, even hours to evaluate a big number of engines. So we can go into a multilingual program, test 50, 60, 80 engines in a short period of time. And what we will look in the future, we hope to completely eliminate the human from the loop. You'll be able to select a number of engines, train them at the click of a button with the same translation memory, and then evaluate them with the same script in minutes. So this is it. This is the short automation which allows teams like ours to be very efficient. This is something many people can take up. It could be connected to a front end. Thank you very much for your attention. I hope I could do it in 3 minutes.
And you did.
Thank you very much, Konstantin. Very interesting. I don't know about anyone else. You brought me back 20 odd years talking about VBS scripts, customized scripts. Brilliant stuff. Dragons, questions for Konstantin?
I have a question, Konstantin. Pleu, with the performance of today's NMT engines, is that still something which really, like a few points more or less, tells you about the quality and the applicability of an MNT engine?
For every test, we rely mostly on edit distance as our key metric. Blue is the first round where we run it. Clients want to see that. We had an internal statistic to compare how often human evaluation agrees with Blue, 58%. So just about 50%. It's just like close to agree or disagree. Clients want to see it, all right, but the most important metric is, does it help the editor?
Konstantin, I'm curious. I know you've seen a lot of people's MT practices throughout the industry. How much of this engine creation and training is, would you say, is like not being automated out there today?
Well, you have some breakthrough companies, then some middle companies, and then everyone else. Most of the process with everyone else is completely manual. With a few top 1% companies, it's automated. And I think we are not in the top 1%. We're trying to get there. We're very good at training. Training is fast in a way which can be managed, can be applied to a scale. So I think we're a year ahead of the rest, but sometime behind the top 1%. We're getting there.
And then you also said that you're basically getting the human processes sort of out of the process. Do you ever see your process being so automated that it might be like self-serve for your customers?
As soon as possible, please.
Thank you.
Optimistically, we want to have it at the end of the year, but that's optimistic. We're not a software company, so we'll see.
Yeah, and I of course I don't want to give you any hard question, but I have a doubt. What do you have as innovation aside from automation? It's a good old discussion about automation not being innovation.
I don't think that 90% of the market has this. It's ahead of the curve. It's pretty innovative that we don't reinvent the wheel. We take the blocks which exist. It's easy to create automated solutions these days with RPA, with scripts, and to piece together a more efficient process. I think this process is much more efficient than most of the industry.
So
to follow up on the question of Yuka, how would customers then have access to that innovation? So
at the moment
like
they have it as a service.
Or...
At the moment it's a service. Once we can finalize this, can become a self-service platform. Not yet. Hopefully one day.
So you said you changed the process.
Indeed. What would be the question, Yuka?
You changed the process of evaluation, training, and blah blah blah.
We automated it. We didn't invent the process. We took what was the best on the market. All
right. Okay. Thank you.
Great stuff. Thank you, Dragons. Good questions, Konstantin. Stood up very well. Well done. Great to have you here. Finally at the PIC, and well done. So
thank you.
Thanks.
All right. So next up, we would just ask Mayu to join us on the stage, and we'll get you ready to go.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm ready.
Off you go.
Right.
Thank you very much. I think I'm gonna need all of my allocated 3 minutes, so I think I'm just gonna jump straight in. And I'd like to start by talking about communicating to audiences for a minute, which is obviously at the core of localization. If we can go to the next slide, please. I'd like everyone here to take a moment to reflect on the work you'll have done when you're about to present an idea and you're hoping to achieve a particular outcome. You'll have thought about how to break down your idea to your specific audience through examples that you think will resonate with them and word choices and stories that you think will make it easier for them to understand you. You'll have considered visual elements to support your message, from pictures on your slides to even perhaps your outfit or your body language. Myself, I've made some conscious choices today, hoping it will ensure a particular outcome with you. And as I go on, consciously and subconsciously, you're making interpretations of what you're experiencing. Only one of the choices I made when preparing this pitch for you is that I will be speaking English. And I dare argue that picking a language wasn't your main concern just now either. We adapt our communication in a variety of ways, depending on what we want to achieve and who our audience is. And we do this because we know that simply speaking the same language when your goal is to excite, educate, or influence someone is not really even the bare minimum, it's a given. So against what's clearly our better knowledge here, businesses often solely focus on language and in localization. Some translate, some transcreate, but all these language-centered approaches, they leave a lot of ground uncovered. Next slide, please. So about 18 months ago, we started thinking about localization a bit differently at What3words. And since then, we have seen a double-digit increase in App Store conversion rates, and we've halved the cost per install of our ads across our key markets, to name a few key results. Our product is an app, and it was optimizing our App Store listings that helped us rethink how we localize. People typically spend only seconds deciding whether to download an app. And in the listings, they tend to focus on the images and the text in the images the most. Therefore, we knew we had to make an impact through our design language and short value statements. So we formed a cross-functional team to localize the entire experience, from structure and tailored messaging to design, such as in this listing for Japan, to help our key audiences better connect with our product and brand. Next, please. Based on these experiments, the impact localization model was born. It breaks localization down into the key elements that need to be addressed for optimal conversion, with data and iteration as the cornerstones of this methodology. At What3words, this simple model and the fantastic results it keeps on delivering have entirely transformed our localization culture all the way to the top. Now, going back to thinking of different audiences, language differences equal lots of contextual and practical differences, and impactful localization is about understanding your audience. It's interaction with them and a journey, not a step we complete. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you very much, Mayu. Very interesting. Reminded me of some thought leaders in the past. I'm sure the dragons will have a lot of questions for you. Let's turn over to them.
Mayu, I'm really I'm trying to understand what is the impact, what this framework is. I did see something that suggests that it's, the localization is not text or content focused, but you're focusing on other elements of the communication. In this case, it was some graphical imagery, but yeah, maybe you could summarize like what exactly is different about this framework than maybe a traditional localization framework.
Sure. So I think traditionally, I think everyone's familiar with the collective sigh you hear from localization managers when at localization conferences, when we talk about the kind of the shared experience of localization being a hard sell in various businesses. And I think that is based on the fact that we are solely focused on the language. So we're focused on essentially using experiences that are ultimately designed for a completely different audience. And we're hoping for that to work everywhere else as well, just by changing the language. So we translate, we localize, we might even transcreate, but we don't tend to take it further than that. And this is actually what we used to do as well. And that is kind of the localization approach that this impact localization model has outperformed. So as I mentioned, we're seeing double-digit improvements in our key performance indicators, such as conversion rates in the app stores. So this is kind of approaching localization more as a how do we adapt? How do we localize an entire experience? And that's when you have to think about your messaging, for example, your value communication, how you structure the text, what kind of design language you use to support that experience that you're trying to deliver. Does that answer your question?
Go ahead, Yuka.
Yeah, I still don't understand, because well-done localization is aiming what you say, like maybe smaller companies or smaller ISPs are focused on only languages and just getting a little bit of design, but huge companies are already doing originated market design as well. I mean, if you look at the website of Starbucks, its design is totally different. I mean, it's a common knowledge that design should be different for the local market, because the human, I mean, the cultural intelligence says that Chinese people read from the eyesight is moved differently from one culture to another. So where is the innovation in your framework? Did you change any process to do it?
Speaking for our company first, we entirely changed how we localize, and you're absolutely right in that we're not one of these multinational corporations just yet. So for us, this was entirely new. The innovation specifically, or the new part here, is kind of bringing this together as a model for cross-functional localization for the companies who are not there yet and who are struggling with kind of measuring their localization success, and kind of tying localization into their specific KPIs. And we know that this is, as I said earlier, localization. There is this kind of common experience that localization is a hard sell, and I would argue that often has to do with the fact that we don't do these things, and therefore we're not able to measure the results properly, and we're not able to achieve the results. So interestingly, also I would add that obviously we started this journey from the app stores and kind of inspired by how app store listings are, like how they're constructed, the different components that they are and that you have to consider. It's really, really rare to see companies, even the big ones, to localize these experiences. So in that sense, this does feel like a very, very new way of thinking, kind of approaching localization as a cross-functional effort.
Maybe could you expand a bit more on data and iteration, which you had highlighted?
Sure. Data and iteration kind of tying to, well, for example, the Japanese App Store listing that I showed you, that is one iteration of, and actually the UK English one as well. They are what the listings look like at a certain point in time. And obviously this iterative approach isn't new in itself. That's something that we would know from, and is common in, for example, product development. But applying that in localization, and perhaps making educated guesses using market research to get started, or language or cultural consultants to get started. But after that, kind of letting your audience tell you what works through gathering data. And I think that was actually key to why this model was so successful at What 3 Words, because we found a platform. For us, it was the App Store that was entirely cost-free, experimenting there and kind of finding what works with our specific audiences. It only cost us some internal resource, and it allowed us to try this kind of incremental, do incremental changes, experiment with our messaging and gather data to get that feedback from our global audiences in different parts of the world, and let them tell us what works and take the next steps from there.
So the way I pictured, so you localize something, you put it out, you collect the stats for a week, then you make a change compared then with the previous version, something like this, or how can I picture the iterative process?
Yeah, I think that could be what it looks like. We have since then, because we've been able to achieve these really encouraging results, we've then expanded the approach, and we're also, we apply this in our advertising, for example. We apply this in our consumer communication, and obviously it gets a bit more, you get data from various sources as you start applying this on various platforms where you can collect that data, such as Facebook ad performance, or what have you, some newsletter KPIs, and then that starts feeding into that kind of that pool of data you have.
Fantastic. I'm just going to stop it there because I think we could spend another 10 minutes on this by the sounds of it. But what I would say, Mayu, very well done. Obviously, you've triggered some great questions. I think you've inspired people. If you check out the chat there as well, the conversation can continue there. Meanwhile, we'd like to thank you, and we'll move on to our next innovator. So thank you once again.
Thanks, Mayu.
So Anouk, your turn to shine. So when you're ready, there she is. Hi, Anouk.
Hi there. I would like to have another 3 minutes to tell you how much I'm aligning with the previous talk, but I'll just do that in.
You don't need it into your own time, right? Good stuff. So over to you, Anouk.
Yeah, sure. If you can just start the slide, then I'll start. So once upon a time, there was a company that created content. And one day they had a client that requested their content in 8 languages. So what did they do? They created their source content, they hired a translation company, they sent it all out and hoped for the best. And like these things go with big projects, everything that could go wrong went wrong at the last moment. So exhausted project managers, missed deadlines, many technical defects, very angry client, and a big penalty actually. But wait a minute, did it go wrong at the last moment? Or did they only detect it at the last moment? And I think we can all guess the answer, right? Now, to solve their problems, we use a methodology that is very common in the manufacturing industry. What they've been doing for years appears to work extremely well for localization, and as far as we're concerned, for creating content in general. So here's the trick. You basically go against all your intuitions of what is efficient. You unbatch and you shrink your pieces. Now, let me use an analogy to explain. If you try to roll a big boulder up a mountain, this takes enormous effort. And chances are it will drop right before the top. Now, chopping up your boulder and using a wheelbarrow, you will have to walk up the mountain multiple times, but you know you're going to get there. And you might just come up with some options to make it go faster. Now, the same goes for translation projects. Running a translation project in one big batch will give you little control, no insight, and usually poor results. Working with smaller pieces allows you to adjust your process as you go. Now, once we take that step of shrinking the pieces, all we need is a means to visualize the process, so we can get clarity on how things are actually going. We use a Kanban board for this. And then what you do is you run these smaller items through your entire process. And when I say the entire process, I mean this to include publishing your content and collecting and processing user feedback, which could also be data. Your focus is on the velocity of each item and on detecting when and where an item gets stuck. You improve your process, you continue with the next cycle, and you detect and solve your next bottleneck. And eventually, you might end up with that conveyor belt. Now, it's almost impossible to grasp the huge impact of moving to this short-cycled process until you've tried it. But let me try to convey what happens if you do. Now, operationally, the benefits of this approach are already amazing. You go twice as fast and detect defects much earlier in the process. And therefore, you make your deadlines. Well, that's pretty good. And people are happy. Now, that's even better. But most of all, it invokes a mind shift, where you constantly look at improving your process from the viewpoint of the end user, instead of merely assessing the outcome on its linguistic merits. A major shift left. You give your users what they need, so they will pay for your product. That's the end, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Anouk. Mind shift, chopping up boulders. It's getting interesting, folks. Dragons, questions?
I have a question. So if customers have a throw over the wall approach, the way I understood it, cutting it into pieces requires then getting also early feedback from the customers. So how do you motivate the customers that they're willing to do this and not throw it over the wall and want it in one piece back?
Well, maybe I'm wrong, but it seems you're assuming that I'm looking from the perspective of an LSP.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no. This is, I'm very much in favor of clients owning their own translation processes. So
Okay.
So when I say user, I mean the actual client of the person.
Okay.
Yeah. So does that already answer your question?
Yes.
Thank you.
So I'm just wondering, because I was running an agile marketing localization process by myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just wondering what's the difference with other, I mean, from everything went agile since 5-6 years ago, as far as I remember. And we are forced to do these small chunks.
Mm-hmm.
And what is the difference in your approach to other agile localization? I mean, I assume you're talking about marketing, because product itself, it's all almost, except for huge enterprise, even huge enterprise went to agile. So who is not doing this kind of localization, and what's your difference? What's the process innovation?
Yeah, I understand your question. Okay, this is going deeper into the system, right? For one thing, I think a lot of translation companies are still charging more when you do smaller pieces, right? So clients are still kind of forced into batching. So I think your idea about that everybody's doing this agile is just not, I mean, I'm very happy for you that you've already figured this out 5 years ago. And I'm very glad for everybody who has, because it makes your life a lot, a lot better. but I'm afraid in real life, this is not the case for everybody. But even if you already understand that you have to do small pieces, then the whole process of improving your process, that's another layer in this thing. So what you do is you define really define process metrics. And then you, for every iteration, you check how that process is differing from what you would like it to be in this moment, right? And then on the basis of that, you do a root cause analysis, then you do a continuous improvement, and like you improve something every day, even if it's this small, and that way you can get to the conveyor belt eventually without having to, do an enormous, thank you, without having to do an enormous implementation plan. But and what it does, and this is so important, is that it tells you what must be improved instead of what can be improved, and it makes it.
I think that I think the title itself and presentation itself should be shifted toward continuous process improvement rather than chunking.
There are 17 million entrance points to telling this story, and because shrinking, because I just see with my clients that it's not that common to shrink them, to really chop up the pieces, because of the translation companies who are actually charging more. So you see that there's this attitude of efficiency where you do everything in bulk, and it's really, you should do the opposite. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah.
I like the idea that, one should think about like the right size of what's a granule of work to be executed, and this idea of making something smaller, I think, has a lot of benefits. So let me ask this question: what is the right size body of a piece of work?
I always like to call that the minimal thing that is still valuable to publish.
Is it a word? A letter?
Well, it depends on your user, I suppose. Anything that you can publish to your user and that you can get feedback on would be, and then the smallest thing would be the answer to that.
Okay, so it might change.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it could also be that, when you go into this process, you start bigger, right? You cannot go to the most granular thing because it's just going to drive you mad, right? So you're going to do that in steps. And so what is one piece? That is one of the things that you have to figure out. That's one of the.
So MVP becomes minimal viable published.
Publication, actually, minimal viable publication. I can send you a really nice article where I explain this.
Cool. MVP redefined.
Yeah, a long time ago, actually.
Oh yeah, that should be the title of your presentation.
Yeah, but God, Yuka, you're so right. But
What I like about this title is it really is talking about the process of shrinking, right? Like starting large, and then you have to come up with like, what's the ontology of this body of work? And so, yeah.
Yeah,
I like the title.
Thank you very much. I have someone in particular to thank for that. So I'll give him credits. Well, he already knows now. Yeah.
So excellent stuff. Thank you, Dragons. Thank you, Anouk. Will we see Rick Moranis doing a cameo if you get to the final? That's the big question that I had. Right, Alex?
Yeah, I would love that. I think he's hiding out in Manhattan somewhere.
Near a flower show, no doubt. All right. So enough of the 80s, 90s film references. We've a show to run. Let's get serious. Come on. So keep your questions coming in, by the way, on chat, and we'll pick them up as part of the question round, which we've extended this time, as you've seen, and I think it's been a good experiment so far. So Konstantin Savenkov, where have we heard that name before? Someone who's very close to the PIC, has been at multiple PICs before. Konstantin, can you join us?
Yes, hi.
Hey, great to see you.
Thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Great to have you. Stage is yours, Konstantin.
Yeah. So my name is Konstantin Savenkov. I'm CEO and co-founder of Intenta. And at Entanta, we built tools to unlock, full potential of machine translation for enterprise. And with so many issues when machine translation delivers the wrong translation, despite being trained on domain-specific data sets. Can you show the next slide, please? And we have realized that many of those issues emerge when the text is formatted, meaning it contains inline text. Next slide, please. And there are several reasons for those issues. First, different MT providers use different approaches to work with inline tags, resulting in very inconsistent and unpredictable behavior across the languages when you work with multiple providers, even with a single one. Then, in some cases, we see that custom models start to use line translations in the presence of the inline tags, which is actually the reason for the issue you have seen on the previous slide. And also, some of the tags are placeholders, and machine translation doesn't know how to deal with them at all. And considering that most of the tags we deal with in localization contain inline tags, especially when go through a TMS system, it creates quite a huge problem when machine translation engines that work great on plain text significantly under-deliver on formatted text, leading to failed expectations and slowing MT adoption. Next slide, please. So, since at Entanta MT Hub, we work with about 16,000 language pairs and 40 different MT engines, we need some MT agnostic way to deal with tags. And we came up with a simple idea, to remove tags from the text, translate it as a plain text, getting the best possible quality, and then put tags back when they should be. So how we do that? Let's consider this fragment of video subtitles. And first of all, we remove inline tags except placeholders and remember where they were in the original sentence. Next one. Then we expand placeholders with plausible words. And we can do it automatically, thanks to a new generation of these generative models such as GPT-3. Next one. And after that, we translate the plain text. And now we need just to put the tags back. So how we do that? We use several universal multilingual embedding models like BERT, Laser, and so on to perform word alignment. And then it gives us information on where to insert tags in the target segment based on where they were in the source. So we're currently piloting this approach for one customer for subtitle translation, and their own MT engines work well on plain text, but subtitle translations are very subpar. And after running translation using this technique, they couldn't believe it's the same MT engines. So once it's in production, we're going to enable it in all our plugins to translation management systems so that enterprises can finally experience the fullest of machine translation, even for formatted text. Thanks. That's it.
Thank you very much, Konstantin.
Thank you.
Very interesting. Dealing with the tag challenge, problem, issue within MT. That's really fantastic stuff. And Dragons, questions for Konstantin?
Konstantin, quick question. Have you benchmarked this? I mean, you said that MT engines have a hard time with text. That's true, but still they manage to deal with them. Have you benchmarked this, the quality or the precision of word alignment versus, let's say, the difficulty of MT systems dealing with text in a correct way?
Yeah, we definitely run experiments also when we wrote out this new feature. We needed to, to see that it works. So I think maybe at some point we'll publish this study. We found that some engines do with tags perfectly. Probably it relates for some languages. It relates to how they treat text, maybe use something like we use on their side. And other engines fell miserably. And also we found what we expected, that for customized MT engines, this problem is much bigger than for stock engines.
And second question, how would you make that innovation accessible? So do you think about having a software as a service where people could integrate this functionality into the MT pipeline?
Yes, we have our MT Hub, which provides single API to all MT engines, and this will be just a parameter of the API call. to use this type of smart tag. We call it smart tag handling. So that you enable this parameter, and then your text goes to empty as plain text.
But would you also open up that functionality standalone so that it's not integrated in the flow if I just want this specific functionality?
Well, if we found a viable business model for that, then yes. But you know, overall, our whole middleware is sort of standalone, meaning that you can use your own MT engines. You can connect it, and then you can channel content through our system to have this and all other nice add-ons we have.
Okay.
So, yes, definitely.
Konstantin, it sounds like one of the problems that your idea is solving is, or one thing it does is makes it easier for someone to be able to use an engine that might be the best fit engine for them, irrespective of like where tagging might otherwise be a problem. Is that, do you see this as being the main problem that your innovation is solving, or
yeah,
something else?
Exactly. So like the previous one, which I presented at PIC related to controlling tone of voice, we sort of see the situation very often when you have to decide, you have to choose between engine providing best linguistic quality for you, like on plain text, and the engine which has some necessary feature for you, like working with tags, or tone of voice control, or profanity filtering, or something else. And by adding things like that, doing this type of innovations, we want to remove this choice. We want you to have both, so that you're able, if you want to use this niche Arabic engine from Qatar, which does really good Arabic translations, but does not support text at all, here you go.
Got it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Konstantin. I have a quick question for you. Where did you get all your ideas from?
Oh, we've just have amazing team, amazing customers, which customers every day bring us new challenges, mostly through our bug tracker, and our amazing team solves those challenges.
Humble to the last. Konstantin, pleasure having you here. Thank you very much.
Thanks for being here.
Well done.
Thanks. Bye.
Excellent. And after Konstantin, we have Riekert, another PIC alumni, in fact, a winner of the PIC a couple of years ago. Riekert, welcome back.
Thank you, Dave, and good to see you all again. And I have good memories competing together with Konstantin, because the last time we competed, we were also in the same round and I won. So maybe this year is going to be the same.
Very good. Well, the floor is yours, Riekert.
Is that the first trash talking we've ever had in the PIC? I think it's going to a new level here.
No. It's just like the innovation of Konstantin was 3 years ago. It was very, very, very good. And I think this innovation is again very, very good. So it's just a good karma.
That was great backtracking. I love that. Over to you, Riekert. Stage is here.
So if you go to the next slide, there is the next slide. Right now, you have 7 seconds to make an impact. And it's all about the experience. And as Mayu said in the App Store, they really wanted to change the design and the workflow, how to collaborate. I think what is really the innovation in her story is that it's a collaborative effort where experience is in the driving seat. And what we see a lot, and that is also my innovation is about, is that the experience and the marketing inclusiveness in the translation process is actually often under par. And so what we are going to show is that what we see is that in the publication process, the content automation doesn't end at the CMS. In the first innovation, we showed our connector framework where we integrated content directly into the CMS. But there's a step after the CMS where content ends up from the content management system on the website. And it's all about the experience on the website. It's not about the linguistic quality. It's not only about the automation. It's how the content appears on the website that is important. And Lockup Insights is going to reveal that this does not happen. There's no testing phase between CMS and website. If you go to the next slide, because what we have discovered is that because a website is such a complicated beast, and because there is no testing tool that monitors if the content appears correctly from the CMS into the actual website, the components are mixed often together. So an example here is, and I'm sorry, Jim, that I'm putting you on stage, but this is Jim's website, where translating intelligently in 2020 and beyond in a mixture of French and English. Now, that was not intended. I can guarantee you that. And if you go to the RWS website, you will see this mistake on every single language. Whether it's South Korean, Chinese, it doesn't matter. There's components mixed together in the publication process that are not revealed. And what we have identified is that if a website has more than 10,000 pages, on average, there are 200 errors added every week. And because there's simply no testing tool that tests the process between CMS and publication. And if we go to the next slide, there's actually a whole world of improvement of multilingual SEO that is untapped in the localization process. So we can look at language consistency, we can look at language quantity, we can look at localization experience, we can look at localization reference, we can look at a geographical target, we can look at content duplication and translation URL, and we can look at search engine friendliness. We monitor those 7 areas as part of our crawl and come up with suggestions to improve the local experience and the local SEO. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Rickert. I'm sure you'll have questions. Dragons.
Can I go? So this is a tool to automatically assess, evaluate one website.
Correct.
Is it correct? So it's automatic, and it takes a few minutes, something like that.
If you have a website of 100,000 pages, it can take up to 4 hours because we go very slow.
Yeah.
But indeed, it's fully automated, and it is, and we have a free version, so everybody can test the website now, actually.
So it's automatic, meaning there's no human evaluation in between, right? So
correct.
My question is, what's the false error, false positive rate?
It is. It really depends on the website, but we can exclude the false positives. So, for instance,
really?
we did a crawl on Jack and Land Rover, and of course the word defender you want to keep in every language. And but then if we exclude the word defender or we exclude the brand names, the false positives are actually reduced. But actually the main learning from all the website is, if you have a website of, let's say, 20,000 pages, you probably have right now already 1,000 errors. These 1,000 errors are caused by 10 fundamental small flaws that happen somewhere in the publication process because something happens manual that has a cascading effect week on week. Yeah? As I said, the example of SDL or the example of RWS, that appears on every single language page where the translate intelligently actually appears. So it's just a component that is manually copied and that something goes wrong in the publication and it cascades back. So it is not about the 100% correctness of identifying the false positives. Yeah. There's very few false positives. It's about identifying the 10 root causes that is creating these 2,000 errors and creating the 200 new errors on a weekly basis.
Yeah, and I guess you're talking about effectiveness of messaging and effectiveness of marketing. So correct. Maybe you have the way to highlight which is the serious errors and which is the
we actually have. Yeah, we actually have.
Really?
So if I am allowed to do in the PIC a demo. And I think I will have 3 minutes extra. I will include a demo, and I invite you to send me the websites to do a demo on, and I will show in the dashboard the most important errors and the biggest areas to improve immediately. So we are having a localization effectiveness score based on the 7 parameters, And we also show within the localization effectiveness score what is where the lowest hanging fruit is to increase the localization effectiveness score.
Very good. What is the business model behind it?
Sorry?
What is the business model behind? So you said that you have a free version, and then how do I pay for this?
The free version actually has two purposes. It is one, a free version for LSPs, because we also count words and we also count unique words. So actually for LSPs, it's very handy because they can quote if they want to translate the website into a new language. And we show then 5 errors of each category.
Yeah.
And if people want to see the full version, they just pay for the full version. And the full version is €500 a month.
Okay. And the whole thing is a software as a service model. So I sign up and pay per month. Yeah.
Correctly. And then you can use it twofold. If you pay the €500 per month up to 10,000 pages, then you can run it before you publish. So you first do a check on the current website, and then you can run it each time before you publish. So you make sure that no new errors actually occur.
Do you publish how many customers you have?
No, but we have done the crawl now at about 150 websites. And it is not in a press release yet, but next week there will be a press release where we are highlighting a state of the industry report where we have identified 93. It will be announced before LocWorld's, where this innovation together with an analyst firm will release a state of the industry for the automotive industry.
Okay.
Wow.
Do you plan to partner with one of the CMS companies as an add-on or so?
I already am the exclusive migration provider for Akia, and this is also in the works there. So from the migration background, we are the exclusive migration provider for Drupal. Akia is the hosting company of Drupal, and we are looking as well into embedding this into the translation workflow of Drupal.
It sounds like the part of the platform is basically coming up with all this content characteristics having to do with quality. I guess I'm not understanding how are you correlating these quality characteristics with outcomes like conversions and user experience.
So we have integrated the Lighthouse reporting of Google, and Google is very clear about how to report a page correctly to them. So Google can give you the localized experience the best way. If I search for pizza in Hilversum and you search for pizza in Denver, we will get we both get a different result. And that is possible because you tell Google where you are. And so I have seen websites where, so one of the lowest hanging fruits, for instance, is that a template is copied, and that as such, because the template is copied, it's still declared to Google as English while you translate it into German. So it really makes no sense to translate into German if you do not tell Google that you have translated it into German.
So it sounds like a lot of the what you're talking about performance has to do with findability.
Yeah. The SEO is the so it's experience. So I would almost argue that from the seven areas of improvement, and as Konstantin helped us to call it 7 deadly sins, and the first one is really focus on the experience. And the second and the number 2 till 7 are much more focused on SEO.
And then, so it sounds like the 7 deadly sins are being sort of, you came up with these as the result of actual data, being able to correlate performance of sites with these characteristics. Okay.
Correct. So we have done. So it all started that I looked back at, and actually it all started with the fact that I wanted to prove that the connectors, that custom connectors were bad, and that custom connectors create a lot of errors in kind of the website. And because of course we are a connector, we have a background in connectors. And so in order to kind of look at how bad the connectors were, I started to look at old analysis reports of our web migrations. And when I looked at old analysis reports of our web migrations, I saw that the consistency of translation was really, really, really under par. And so then we started looking, then we built a quick crawler to see if our thesis was actually right, and that there is no testing tool that tests from CMS to publication. And so then we did, so that was in May of 2020. And then in July of 2020, we really learned that, okay, this is very consistent. This is very consistent. And then, so we started to ask around. And then in July 2020, we went full throttle in the development of a crawler that really crawls the whole website and gets accurate information so that we can show accurate information to prospects.
Thank you.
So it's not only for localization, but the source as well.
Sorry?
So it's not just for localization. If you do this kind of analysis for the source, you can see the effectiveness of the source website.
Exactly. So if we do not win this year, then indeed, then we are taking the route to show we want to make a prediction of what the increase in leads is if you are increasing the quality. So because, and this is why I wrote to the comment of Mayu, like, I find this an excellent innovation, because the root thinking of us and it's like, translation is in essence a commodity driven industry driven by price per word, where procurement decides who wins. And if you do this for 20, 30 years, marketing kind of gets excluded and processes are implemented where marketing is not included. What was so beautiful about the innovation of Mayu is that it was a true collaborative effect where, and of course it's common sense, but it was for a localization department, it was a true innovation because they were suddenly at the table of marketing. And that is what we are trying to do as well here. We are taking a marketing perspective, like, okay, why do you translate? The only reason you translate is because you want to get more customers in a local region. That's the reason to translate. And so let's take the experience of the local visitor, and let's take leads as a driver to see how we can improve that. And
right.
as I showed, multilingual SEO is not done. Is not done. It's not done by the SEO tools either, because there's no AI algorithm that looks. So an SEO tool only sees this page is correctly published within a short period of time, but it doesn't analyze if there's French or German because it doesn't look at the text.
So on that note,
we are proving the
Rickert, I'm going to cut across you. Sorry about that. Sounds like this conversation can continue, so I'd invite you to continue it. And thanks very much, Rickert. Very interesting stuff. Yet again, I have to add, thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Good. And as Rickert says, you know, the pick at the end, there is an overall winner, but you know, the fun is taking part. We'd just like to sign off quickly, wrap up, and say thank you to all of our innovators. So Konstantin, Mayu, Anouk, Konstantin Savenkov, and Rickert just there. And to thank our dragons. So Yuka, Jim, and Jochen, brilliant to have you on board. What happens next, Alex?
Yeah, so wow, 10 amazing innovators over 2 great sessions here, and certainly would all be deserving finalists as well. But we will have to make some hard choices. We'll huddle with our dragons over the next couple days. We'll do some deliberating, and we'll come up with a list of finalists that will be published probably by Friday, I would say, or at latest next Monday on the PIC website. So stay tuned into pic.locworld.com. We'll also announce it on the LocWorld website and in the LocWorld program. And we hope to see everyone on Wednesday, June 9th for the final round. I'll make one last pitch. 2 hours from now, LocWorld has a taste of LocWorld. Again, if you want to check that out, it's free to join. Visit the LocWorld website. But wanted to take the opportunity again to thank all of our great innovators and our 3 dragons, Jim, Yuka, and Jochen. Thank you very much for taking time and providing these great questions for our innovators.
Well, it was a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Great.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
We'll see you
Bye-bye.
soon.
Ciao, ciao.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.